The school hallway was unnervingly quiet, the kind of stillness that made every sound echo. A blind girl sat alone, trembling, her small hands clutching the piano keys as if they were her only lifeline. Anxiety twisted her chest, unnoticed by anyone, except a janitor passing by. He saw her fear, her loneliness, and without thinking, began to play. Gentle, tender notes filled the air, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. High above, in a sleek office, her powerful mother watched silently, unaware of the extraordinary bond forming below. The janitor pushed his cart slowly down the empty school hallway, the soft scrape of its wheels echoing off the walls. The morning was unusually still, broken only by the distant hum of the heating system and the occasional birdsong outside the window. He had arrived early, earlier than his usual routine, driven by a sense he could not name, a whisper in his mind that something important awaited him. Turning a corner near the music room, he noticed a small figure standing in front of the piano. She was a young girl, maybe 7 or 8, her tiny hands brushing the keys hesitantly, as if testing them. Her brow was furrowed, her lips pressed together, and the anxiety radiating from her was unmistakable. Even though she was blind, he could see the fear in her posture, the way she recoiled from shadows and sudden noises, the tension in her shoulders. "Good morning," he said softly, careful not to startle her. She turned her head slightly, acknowledging him with a tentative nod. The janitor paused, unsure whether to intrude, but some instinct inside him pushed him forward. There was something about her that demanded attention, something fragile yet resilient, a spark hidden beneath layers of fear. He asked. Her eyes, though blind, seemed to focus on him. A small nod followed, hesitant but hopeful. He walked toward the piano and took a seat, running his fingers lightly across the keys. He hadn't played in years, not seriously, but the melodies he remembered came back naturally, simple, gentle, soothing. He started with a soft lullaby he once played for his own daughter, a song of comfort and familiarity. At first, his notes were tentative, unsure, almost cautious, but as the girl's tiny hands hovered closer to the keys, her breathing gradually slowed. She hummed softly, a delicate sound that matched the rhythm of the music. The janitor adjusted his tempo, his fingers dancing lightly over the keys, guiding her without words, coaxing the melody to flow naturally. Unseen, high above the music room in a sleek office with glass walls, a woman stood silently. Her hair was perfectly styled, her posture straight, the embodiment of control and authority. She held a cup of coffee loosely in one hand, her eyes fixed on the small scene unfolding below. She watched her daughter, vulnerable yet brave, responding to a man she barely noticed before, with an unspoken trust. Something in her chest tightened, a mixture of awe and disbelief. She realized in that moment that this janitor, ordinary, unassuming, unnoticed, was doing what she could not, reaching her child's heart. The girl tentatively pressed one key, then another, her small fingers tracing patterns guided by the janitor's hands. She stumbled over wrong notes occasionally, but didn't stop. Her soft hums grew stronger, mingling with the gentle flow of the piano. He smiled, encouraged her subtly, letting her discover the joy of sound and the comfort of music. A sudden creak at the door startled them both. Another child, a boy from her class, had appeared, eyes wide with curiosity. He asked quietly. "Yes," the girl said, her voice small but steady. The janitor motioned for the boy to listen, and soon the child inched closer. The music became a shared language, binding them together in a small, intimate circle. The girl's confidence grew with each passing minute, her laughter returning as she experimented with new notes. For the first time in weeks, the anxiety that had gripped her seemed to ease. The mother, watching silently above, felt her own emotions swell. She realized that her daughter's progress did not come from lessons, structured guidance, or carefully planned schedules. It came from patience, from gentle encouragement, from someone willing to meet a child where she was, without judgment, without authority. She took a deep breath, letting herself feel gratitude and awe for this man whose influence was quiet yet profound. Hours passed, yet neither the janitor nor the girl noticed. The small music room had become a sanctuary, a place where fear could dissolve and trust could flourish. More children gathered near the doorway, drawn by the unusual sound of piano notes that carried warmth rather than instruction. They whispered to each other and eventually joined, sitting or standing nearby, captivated by the unfolding scene. The girl tried to replicate the melodies, her small fingers pressing keys cautiously, learning to match the rhythms and tones. She made mistakes, yet she laughed each time, realizing imperfection was not failure. The janitor guided her subtly, never correcting too harshly, letting her discover confidence and joy on her own. The ba joined in with small percussion on the piano's edge, adding to the growing harmony, creating a rhythm that was improvisational, yet perfect in its spontaneity. Above, the mother's lips curved into a soft smile. She reflected on her own childhood, the lessons she had learned and the moments she had missed. This janitor, with no wealth or power to speak of, was teaching her child lessons more important than any she could provide. Patience, trust, resilience, and the courage to face fear. She felt a pang of humility, realizing that sometimes true guidance came from the unlikeliest sources. As the morning wore on, the girl finished her first complete piece. She leaned back, chest rising and falling with relief, and looked up at the janitor. She asked softly. "I'd be happy to," he replied, smiling. The second melody was playful, lighter, and encouraged her to explore mistakes freely, to create instead of replicate. She laughed, the sound ringing through the music room, pure and unguarded. It was the sound of trust and joy, a sound that filled the heart with relief and hope. The mother remained unseen but fully absorbed, understanding that this bond forming below would change their lives. It was not just a child and a janitor. It was a story of trust, of connection, of the quiet power of kindness. She felt a need to learn more about this man, to understand the heart that had so effortlessly touched her daughter. By afternoon, the school halls buzzed with activity, but the music room remained a quiet haven. The janitor packed his cart slowly, savoring the calm, the laughter, the sense of having done something meaningful. The girl stood beside him, her small hands brushing the keys one last time before they left. She asked, hope shining in her eyes. "I'll be here," he said, meaning it, and for the first time in weeks, the girl felt truly seen, truly safe, and truly happy. The mother, still watching from above, allowed herself a small, private smile. She knew their journey was only beginning, that the bond between her child and this ordinary man was extraordinary. And as the sun streamed through the music room windows, casting golden light across the piano and the small group, she understood that moments of magic often came quietly, unexpectedly, and without warning. The next morning, the janitor arrived even earlier than usual. The halls were silent, the faint scent of cleaning supplies mingling with the crisp morning air. He had thought about the girl all night, her small, trembling hands, the way her lips pressed together in fear, and he felt a quiet urgency to be there for her again. Turning the corner toward the music room, he saw her standing in front of the piano, fingers hovering above the keys. She looked more confident than yesterday, but a faint shadow of anxiety still lingered in her posture. "Good morning," he said softly. She turned her head toward him, offering a small smile that was almost shy. Without speaking, she gestured toward the piano, as if inviting him to begin. He approached the instrument and sat on the bench, letting his fingers rest lightly on the keys. The first notes came slowly, a gentle melody, almost hesitant. But as he played, the girl's hands moved closer, brushing over the keys with tentative curiosity. She hummed softly, a fragile sound that grew steadier as the rhythm continued. Unseen above, in a sleek glass office, Her mother stood watching. She had been drawn back early this morning by an inexplicable urge, curious about the bond forming between her daughter and this janitor. She leaned slightly forward, eyes narrowing with fascination. Here was her child, blind and anxious, responding to a man she had never considered remarkable. He had no authority, no position, no wealth to command respect. But somehow, he commanded her daughter's trust. It unsettled her in a way she hadn't anticipated. The girl pressed one key after another, each note more confident than the last. The janitor noticed her growing boldness and smiled. He began to vary the melody, weaving in small flourishes that invited her to experiment. She responded, hitting keys more freely, laughing softly at her mistakes. The music became a dialogue between them, an unspoken conversation that carried reassurance, trust, and joy. Suddenly, a soft knock at the door interrupted them. A boy from her class peeked in, eyes wide with curiosity. He asked, "Yes," the girl replied confidently. The janitor nodded, welcoming the boy to step closer. Soon he joined in, tapping a rhythm on the side of the piano. The music shifted, becoming collaborative, improvisational, alive. The girl's confidence surged. Her laughter rang out, unguarded and pure, filling the small room with warmth and sound. The mother watched, barely blinking, captivated. She felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, awe, and an unspoken realization. Her daughter's progress did not come from tutors, lessons, or strict schedules. It came from patience, gentle guidance, and the presence of someone who cared deeply enough to notice her child's struggles. She had spent so long focusing on control, on providing every advantage, yet here was a man with nothing to give but time and heart, and he was achieving what she could not. Hours passed, yet neither the janitor nor the children noticed. The music room had become a sanctuary, a place removed from schedules and pressures, where creativity, trust, and courage could flourish. Other children began to linger outside the door, drawn by the melodies drifting through the hallways. The janitor welcomed their presence without breaking the rhythm, letting them witness the magic quietly. The girl experimented with more complex sequences, her small fingers pressing keys with increasing assurance. When she faltered, she laughed and tried again. The janitor guided her subtly, never forcing her to replicate exact notes, letting her feel the freedom to explore. The boy added light percussion, clapping along with the rhythm, and soon they were a small ensemble of trust, patience, and play. The mother's chest tightened as she observed. She had always relied on structure and authority to shape her daughter's life, but she now realized that some of life's most vital lessons came from human connection, empathy, and patience. This janitor, someone she had dismissed countless times as ordinary, was teaching her child resilience, confidence, and the power of gentle guidance. She felt a strange mix of humility, gratitude, and awe. A sudden loud bang in the hallway startled the girl. She froze, fingers hovering over the keys, her small body trembling again. The janitor's hands paused, and he looked at her gently. "It's okay," he said. He resumed playing, slower this time, a calming melody designed to soothe and reassure. Her hands moved back onto the keys, responding to the music. She realized that even when the outside world was chaotic, there were people who could provide safety and calm. The mother watched quietly, a lump forming in her throat, understanding that her child was learning lessons no money could buy: trust, courage, and emotional resilience. After a while, the girl completed the melody and leaned back, exhausted but smiling. She asked softly. "Of course," he replied, beginning a new playful tune that invited mistakes and improvisation. She joined in enthusiastically, her laughter mingling with the piano notes, a sound of pure joy. The boy added rhythm again, and soon the small music room was filled with music, laughter, and life. As the morning turned into afternoon, the janitor packed his cart slowly. The girl stood beside him, fingers brushing the keys one last time. She asked, her eyes bright with hope. "I'll be here," he said, smiling, and he meant it. The mother, still hidden above, finally allowed herself to relax. She knew that this janitor, ordinary by any standard, had become extraordinary in their lives. He had built a bridge to her daughter's heart, a connection that would only grow stronger. She understood that their journey was just beginning, and that this bond would shape her child in ways she could never have foreseen. The music room, the piano, and the quiet kindness of a man who noticed what others didn't had created something lasting. A sanctuary of trust, courage, and hope. The following morning, the janitor arrived at the school before sunrise. The halls were still, and a gentle light filtered through the windows, painting the floor in soft gold. He had thought about the girl all night, the fear in her eyes, the small tremors in her hands, and the quiet strength she had shown. There was something about her that tugged at him, something fragile, yet courageous, and he felt an unshakable determination to be there for her once again. As he approached the music room, he saw her standing near the piano, hands hovering over the keys. She looked more confident than before, yet there was still a faint shadow of uncertainty in her posture. Her small shoulders tensed as she prepared herself for another session. "Good morning," he said gently. She looked toward him and nodded, a small smile breaking through. Her trust in him had grown, but the fear of making mistakes still lingered. She gestured toward the piano, inviting him to begin. He sat down, letting his fingers lightly touch the keys. The melody started softly, hesitant, but gradually it grew warmer and more assured. Above the music room, the girl's mother watched from her glass-walled office. She had come earlier than usual, drawn by a curiosity she could not ignore. Watching her daughter respond to the janitor stirred something in her, a mixture of awe, disbelief, and gratitude. This man, who had no wealth, no position, no influence, was making a profound impact on her child. He was reaching her daughter's heart in ways she herself had struggled to do. The girl began to press the keys herself, slowly, cautiously, as if testing the safety of the music. She made mistakes, hitting wrong notes, but the janitor encouraged her without words, guiding her hands subtly. Her laughter began to return, soft and tentative at first, then growing stronger as she realized mistakes were not failures. The music became a conversation, a bond, a shared journey of trust and patience. The boy from her class arrived again, this time more confident, and joined the session. His light percussion on the piano's edge created a rhythm that added life to the melody. The girl's confidence surged. She began to explore the keys with curiosity and joy. The janitor smiled, watching her discover a world of creativity she had never known she could enter. The mother observed quietly, her emotions stirring in ways she had not expected. She had built an empire on discipline, control, and precision. Yet here was a man who wielded none of that, and he was teaching her daughter lessons more valuable than any she could provide. Patience, courage, trust, resilience. These were the qualities her daughter was learning silently, through music and kindness. She felt awe and gratitude and a quiet humility. Suddenly, the hallway outside erupted in a clatter of noise. Some students had knocked over a stack of chairs, sending a loud echo through the school. The girl froze, hands hovering over the keys, her body trembling. The janitor turned to her, his expression calm and reassuring. "It's okay," he said softly. He resumed playing, a slow, soothing melody that wrapped around her like a blanket. The girl's hands returned to the keys, her confidence rebounding with each note. The mother watched, realizing that her daughter was learning to navigate fear, to find calm in chaos. This was a lesson money and authority could never teach. Hours passed, but neither the janitor nor the children noticed. The room had become a sanctuary, a place where trust, patience, and creativity intertwined. Other students peeked in from the doorway, drawn by the unusual, warm melody. They watched, captivated, but did not disturb the fragile magic that had formed. The girl began to take more risks, exploring complex patterns on the piano. She made mistakes, but she laughed freely, embracing the process rather than fearing perfection. The janitor guided her with gentle gestures, letting her find her own path. The boy added rhythm and playful notes, completing a small ensemble of creativity and joy. The mother, observing silently, felt her chest tighten. She realized that her carefully structured life had not prepared her for this. Watching her daughter's trust grow, watching a man she had dismissed as ordinary transform her child's experience. She felt awe, humility, and a growing need to understand him, to recognize the extraordinary presence he had brought into their lives. By afternoon, the girl finished her piece and leaned back, breathing heavily but smiling. She asked, "Of course," he said, beginning a new, lively melody. The girl joined in, laughter mingling with music. The boy continued with light percussion, and together they created a harmony of trust, discovery, and joy. As the school day drew to a close, the janitor packed his cart slowly. The girl stood beside him, brushing her fingers over the keys one last time. She asked, eyes bright. "I'll be here," he replied, smiling, meaning every word. The mother remained unseen, letting herself absorb the moment. She understood that this janitor, who had seemed ordinary, had become extraordinary in their lives. He had bridged a gap between fear and courage, loneliness and connection. The bond he had formed with her daughter was subtle yet powerful, and she knew it would shape their lives profoundly. As the sun streamed through the music room windows, casting a golden glow across the floor, the janitor, the girl, and the boy shared a moment of pure joy. The mother, watching silently, recognized that the smallest acts of kindness could have the most profound effects. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a quiet hope that her daughter's world was expanding in ways she had never imagined possible. The following morning, the janitor arrived with a sense of quiet anticipation. The school corridors were still, empty except for the soft echo of his cart. He had thought about the girl overnight, about her fear, her curiosity, and her small, trembling hands on the piano. There was a fragile courage in her, a spark he could sense even through the shadows of her blindness. Approaching the music room, he saw her already there, standing near the piano, her fingers hovering lightly over the keys. She looked up at him and offered a small, hopeful smile. "Good morning," he said softly. She nodded, gesturing toward the piano. He walked over and took his seat, letting his fingers rest lightly on the keys. The first notes were slow and gentle, building a melody of comfort. She moved her hands closer, brushing the keys cautiously, then with increasing confidence. Her hums, soft and hesitant at first, began to blend with the melody, creating a harmony that filled the room. Above, the mother observed silently from her office. She had grown increasingly captivated by this man. Each day he revealed something new: patience, understanding, and a subtle ability to connect with her daughter in ways she had never achieved. She could feel the power of his presence, not through authority or instruction, but through gentle guidance and authentic care. He was teaching her child lessons that money and influence could never replace. The girl pressed more keys, experimenting with patterns. When she faltered, she laughed softly, and the janitor smiled. He encouraged her subtly, allowing her to discover her own confidence and rhythm. The music became a dialogue, a silent exchange of trust, patience, and discovery. It was more than a lesson. It was a sanctuary, a place where fear gave way to courage, and loneliness was replaced by connection. Suddenly, the boy from her class appeared again. This time he walked in confidently, no hesitation in his steps. He tapped lightly on the piano's edge, adding rhythm to the melody. The girl's confidence soared, her small fingers exploring keys more boldly. Together, the three of them created a harmony that was spontaneous, joyful, and profoundly moving. The janitor watched them, realizing that they had built a small, intimate world within the music room, a world of trust, creativity, and care. The mother's heart tightened as she observed. She reflected on her own childhood, on lessons learned through structure and discipline. Yet here was a man without influence, without authority, whose simple presence was transforming her daughter's experience. She felt gratitude and awe, a quiet recognition that life's most important lessons often came from those who asked for nothing in return. She realized that her daughter was learning resilience, patience, and courage, not through instruction, but through connection. As the morning wore on, the girl's confidence continued to grow. She pressed the keys with increasing fluidity, experimenting with notes and rhythms. Her laughter rang out, light and unguarded, echoing through the small room. The janitor guided her gently, allowing her to make mistakes, teaching her through encouragement rather than correction. The boy maintained the rhythm, their small ensemble blossoming into a melody of trust and joy. Suddenly, a loud crash in the hallway startled the girl. Her fingers froze, her body trembling with fear. The janitor's hands paused, and he turned toward her calmly. "It's okay," he said softly. He resumed playing, a slow, soothing melody designed to calm her nerves. Gradually, her hands returned to the keys, her breathing steadied, and the fear melted away. The mother watched, feeling a profound respect for the janitor's patience and care. Her child was learning to navigate fear, to trust, and to embrace the unknown. These were lessons that no wealth, tutor, or structured schedule could ever provide. Hours passed, but the magic of the music room persisted. Other children lingered at the doorway, curious about the unusual sound. The janitor welcomed their presence quietly, allowing them to witness but not disrupt. The girl experimented with new patterns, her mistakes met with gentle guidance and soft encouragement. The music became a tapestry of exploration, courage, and joy. By afternoon, the girl finished a full piece, leaning back with a smile, exhausted but happy. She asked, hope shining in her eyes. "Of course," the janitor replied, beginning a new melody, playful, improvisational, encouraging her to take risks. She joined in, laughter intertwining with the music. The boy continued his light rhythm, creating a rich, collaborative harmony. The room filled with sound, joy, and a sense of accomplishment. As the school day ended, the janitor packed his cart slowly. The girl lingered beside him, fingers brushing the keys one last time. She asked softly, "I'll be here," he said, smiling warmly, meaning every word. The mother, still hidden above, allowed herself a quiet smile. She understood that this ordinary man had become extraordinary in their lives. He had bridged a gap between fear and courage, between loneliness and connection. The bond he had created with her daughter was subtle but powerful, one that would continue to grow in ways neither she nor the janitor could yet imagine. As the sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long golden rays across the piano and floor, a sense of calm and hope filled the room. The janitor, the girl, and the boy shared a moment of quiet triumph, and for the first time in a long while, the mother felt a deep hope, realizing that her child's world was expanding in ways she had never imagined, guided by someone who simply noticed, cared, and believed. The following morning, brought a crisp, golden light to the school. The janitor arrived early, as always, his cart moving softly along the quiet halls. He thought about the girl, about her small hands hovering over the piano, and the courage he had witnessed grow in just a few days. He approached the music room, heart quietly steadying, and saw her standing there, fingers poised, ready to play. She looked up at him with a smile, more confident than ever, though still tinged with the anxiety that always accompanied her first notes. "Good morning," he said softly. She nodded and gestured toward the piano. He moved to the bench, letting his fingers hover over the keys. The first notes were soft, a gentle invitation to the day. She pressed a key, then another, following his lead with growing confidence. Her small hums blended with the melody, creating a harmony that seemed to vibrate through the walls. From above, the mother watched. She had returned early again, drawn by curiosity and a sense of something she couldn't define. She observed quietly, noting the subtleties of the janitor's guidance, the gentle nudges, the patient timing, the soft encouragements that seemed to convey more than words ever could. He had no authority, yet the girl responded to him with complete trust. This realization unsettled her, in a way she did not expect, challenging her perceptions of control, influence, and love. The girl's fingers danced over the keys, exploring new patterns and rhythms. When she faltered, hitting wrong notes, she laughed softly. The janitor smiled, guiding her subtly, never correcting too harshly, letting her discover the music herself. The melody became more complex, and the girl responded with creativity and courage. The boy appeared again, joining the session with light percussion. Together, the three created a rhythm that was playful, harmonious, and deeply moving. The mother felt a stirring of emotions she could not suppress. She realized that no amount of wealth, planning, or structured lessons could replicate what her daughter was experiencing in that small room. Here was a man with nothing to offer but time, patience, and genuine care, teaching her child lessons that mattered most: resilience, confidence, and trust. Her chest tightened with gratitude and awe. Suddenly, a commotion in the hallway caused the girl to freeze. A stack of chairs had fallen, creating a loud noise that reverberated through the school. Her small body trembled, fingers suspended over the keys. The janitor turned to her calmly. "It's okay," he said softly. He continued playing, a soothing melody that wrapped around her like a protective blanket. Slowly, she returned her hands to the keys, allowing the music to wash away her fear. The mother watched silently, realizing her daughter was learning to navigate anxiety and uncertainty, finding courage and safety in human connection rather than authority or structure. The morning passed, yet the magic of the music room persisted. The girl grew bolder with each note, experimenting with new rhythms and sequences. Her laughter became more frequent, filling the room with joy. The bee added rhythmic accents, completing a small ensemble that resonated with creativity and trust. The janitor watched, realizing that they had created a small world inside the room, a sanctuary of safety, confidence, and connection. The mother's emotions swelled. She had spent her life focused on control and precision, building a career and an empire. But she now understood that some of life's most vital lessons came from patience, empathy, and the quiet presence of someone who noticed. Her daughter was learning courage, resilience, and joy in a way that no schedule or tutor could provide. She felt awe, humility, and gratitude toward the janitor for the extraordinary impact he had on her child. By afternoon, the girl finished a complete piece. She leaned back, exhausted but smiling. She asked, "Of course," the janitor replied, starting a new, more playful melody. The girl joined in, laughter mingling with the notes, creating an improvisational harmony that filled the room. The boy added light percussion, and together they produced a collaborative, joyous composition. As the school day drew to a close, the janitor packed his cart. The girl stood beside him, brushing her fingers over the keys one last time. She asked, eyes shining. "I'll be here," he said warmly, smiling, meaning every word. The mother remained hidden, absorbing every detail. She understood that this janitor had become extraordinary in their lives. He had bridged the gap between fear and courage, loneliness and connection. The bond he had formed with her daughter was subtle, profound, and life-changing. She recognized that their journey was only beginning, and that this relationship would continue to shape her child in ways she could not yet imagine. As the sunlight streamed through the music room windows, casting long rays across the floor and piano, A sense of calm and hope enveloped the room. The janitor, the girl, and the boy shared a moment of quiet triumph, a connection born of patience, courage, and trust. The mother, watching silently, realized that life's smallest acts of kindness could have the deepest, most lasting impact. And for the first time in a long while, she felt hope. Hope that her daughter's world was expanding, guided by someone who simply noticed, cared, and believed. The next morning, the janitor arrived at the school, his cart rolling softly across the empty halls. The air carried a gentle stillness, punctuated only by the faint hum of the ventilation system and distant bird calls outside. He approached the music room with a sense of quiet anticipation. The girl was already there, standing near the piano, her fingers brushing lightly over the keys. Her expression was calm but alert, the shadow of fear from previous days replaced with growing curiosity and confidence. "Good morning," he said softly. She looked up and nodded, a small, warm smile spreading across her face. She gestured toward the piano, inviting him to begin. He took his seat, letting his fingers hover over the keys. The first notes were gentle and slow, a soft melody of reassurance. The girl pressed one key, then another, following his lead with increasing confidence. Her hums blended with the music, creating a delicate harmony that seemed to fill the room with warmth. Above, the mother watched from her glass-walled office. She had returned early once more, drawn by the silent fascination of the bond forming between her daughter and this ordinary man. Each day she saw something extraordinary unfold: patience, empathy, and trust in action. The janitor had no authority, no wealth, yet he had become indispensable in a way she could never have imagined. She felt awe, gratitude, and a stirring humility she had not known before. The girl explored the piano more boldly than before, experimenting with sequences and rhythms. She made mistakes, laughing softly with each one, and the janitor encouraged her subtly. The melody evolved, improvisational, yet harmonious, a conversation without words. The boy appeared once again, tapping a gentle rhythm on the side of the piano. Together, the three created music that was alive, joyful, and intimate. The mother's chest tightened. She realized that her structured, controlled life had never prepared her for this. The lessons her daughter was learning, resilience, courage, and trust, could not be taught through schedules or tutors. They came from a quiet presence, from someone willing to invest time and care without expectation. She felt awe and gratitude, recognizing that her child was thriving in a way she had never anticipated. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed from the hallway. The girl froze, fingers suspended above the keys, her small body trembling. The janitor turned to her calmly. "It's okay," he said softly. He continued playing, a gentle melody designed to soothe. Slowly, her hands returned to the keys, guided by trust rather than fear. The mother watched, understanding that her child was learning to navigate the world with courage, to find calm in chaos and to embrace her abilities without fear. The morning passed in a blur of music and laughter. The girl's confidence grew steadily, her small fingers dancing across the keys. The boy added rhythm and percussion, creating a small ensemble that resonated with joy. The janitor watched, realizing that their tiny music room had become a sanctuary, a space of trust, growth, and connection. By afternoon, the girl completed a full piece. She leaned back, exhausted but glowing with satisfaction. She asked, hope and excitement shining in her eyes. "Of course," the janitor replied, beginning a lively, playful melody. The girl joined in, laughter intertwining with the piano notes. The boy contributed rhythmically, and together they created a rich, collaborative harmony that filled the room. As the school day ended, the janitor slowly packed his cart. The girl lingered beside him, Brushing her fingers over the keys one last time, she asked softly, "I'll be here," he said warmly, smiling, meaning every word. The mother, still observing silently, allowed herself a small, private smile. She understood now that this janitor, ordinary in appearance, had become extraordinary in their lives. He had bridged the gap between fear and courage, loneliness and connection. The bond he had created with her daughter was subtle, yet powerful, a gift that would continue to grow. As sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long golden rays across the piano and floor, the janitor, the girl, and the boy shared a quiet moment of triumph. Music, trust, and joy had become intertwined in a way that would forever mark their lives. The mother, watching from above, realized that the smallest acts of kindness could have the deepest, most lasting impact. She felt hope that her daughter's world would continue to expand, guided by someone who simply noticed, cared, and believed. For the first time in weeks, the girl felt truly seen, truly safe, and truly happy. The janitor's music had not only calmed her fears, but had built a bridge between her and the world around her. The mother understood that some of life's most vital lessons could never be bought or controlled. They had to be experienced, nurtured, and felt with genuine care. In that quiet music room, an ordinary janitor had created something extraordinary, a sanctuary of trust, courage, and joy. And as the sunlight bathed the three figures in warmth, a sense of hope and connection lingered in the air, promising many more mornings filled with music, laughter, and hearts growing together. And so, the janitor, the blind girl, and her young friend continued their mornings, filled with music, laughter, and trust. Each note brought courage, each melody built connection, and each smile reminded them of the extraordinary power of kindness. Her mother watched silently, grateful for the unexpected bond that had transformed her daughter's world. Life sometimes delivers magic in the most ordinary places, and love and patience can change hearts forever. If this story touched your soul, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Join us for more heartwarming tales that celebrate the beauty of human connection.